For our video project, we chose to focus on 3 websites that you could use in your mathematical class. The first, Edmunds.com, was to compare the cost of owning a hybrid, gasoline, and diesel vehicle. The second, Zillow.com, was to prepare a comparative market analysis of homes. And the third, PapaJohns.com, was used to determine the number of outcomes for a given event. With these 3 websites, you could create many lesson plans that will actively involve the students and enhance their knowledge of mathology. Through the lessons we created for each of these websites, we highlighted the key points and main ideas to use in an online lesson with these sites. The Common Core standards for the Edmunds.com lesson, there are 2. The first one is to create equations in 2 or more variables to represent relationships between quantities, graph equations on the coordinate axes with labels and scales. The cognitive complexity of this is a level 2 basic application of skills and concepts. Second standard is to represent constraints by equations or inequalities and by systems of equations and or inequalities, and interpret solutions as viable or non-viable options in a modeling context. The cognitive complexity is a level 3 strategic thinking and complex reasoning. The standards for mathematical practices in this lesson are to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them, reason abstractly and quantitatively, use appropriate tools strategically, attend to precision, and look for and make sense of structure. The problem students will be presented with is: you are in the market to purchase a new 5-passenger vehicle. Determine which is the most cost-effective type of vehicle at 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years of ownership. Use the purchase price and the miles per gallon to determine your long-term cost if you plan to drive 15,000 miles per year.
The directions for this assignment are to go on to Edmunds.com and find 3 5-passenger vehicles, a hybrid, a gasoline, and a diesel engine. Determine the manufacturer's suggested retail price, the MSRP, and the miles per gallon, the MPG. If you were to drive an average of 15,000 miles each year, create an equation to find the cost of owning each vehicle by using the MSRP and the MPG. Look up on GasBuddy.com what the current fuel costs are. Graph your results to illustrate the long-term cost of all 3 scenarios and how many years you would have to own each vehicle for them to be the best buy.
The student's first direction was to go on to Edmunds.com in order to get the information for their 3 vehicles, one being hybrid, one being diesel, and one being gasoline. They're going to need to get the miles per gallon and the price of the vehicle. So to start out with, on Edmunds.com, I'm going to go to the Make section and find my vehicles. My first vehicle I'm going to choose is going to be a Honda Accord hybrid, and students can really pick whatever vehicle that they want. They just need to make sure that they're similar vehicles and that they're also a 5-passenger vehicle, so that way it kind of puts them all into the same classification and we're comparing apples to apples. Okay, now once I go and I find my vehicle, this is again the Honda Accord hybrid. I chose a brand new vehicle. If I scroll down, I start to get some information on the vehicle. I can see right here is my estimated MSRP, which is the manufacturer's suggested retail price, and that's the price that we're going to use for this problem. I can also scroll down a little bit more and see that the fuel economy, which is the miles per gallon that this vehicle gets. It's going to be 50 in the city and 45 in the highway, and I can go ahead and use that information. Now, students will be given the choice to either use city, highway, or for those that would like to be a little bit more precise, they can go ahead and take the average of the two. As long as they're consistently using between the three vehicles, city, highway, or the average of the two, then that's going to be acceptable. So I need a place to put all this information in on paper and pencil. I can go ahead and begin to write a table, or I can go ahead and use an Excel spreadsheet, and I'll go ahead and do that so I can demonstrate to you. Okay, the Honda Accord price, I've got my spreadsheet set up, so I just need to put my prices here and my miles per gallon right here. The price of the Honda Accord Hybrid was $32,875, and now I need to find my miles per gallon, which I'm going to go ahead and use the average. So in order to do that, I would take my calculator. I could do it by hand, adding the two and dividing those by 2, or I can go ahead and do this on the calculator for those students that need a little bit more assistance, and I can divide that by 2, and so my answer is going to be $47.50. I'm now going to go back into my spreadsheet. I'm sorry, not 47.50, but 47.5 for the miles per gallon. Okay. Now what I can do is I've come to the realization in my group that if I take miles driven and divide that by miles per gallon, and then multiply that times the gallon of gasoline, the price per gallon, I'm going to get what the 1 year would cost for gasoline. Now what I've done is gone on to GasBuddy.com and found out the price of today's gasoline, which is $2.65. So now I've got my formula. I can actually use the Excel spreadsheet to do this for me. So on Excel, I can go to the summation tool, which is if I go to formula, or it's actually even right up here as well, and I can tell Excel to take this cell. I want to take miles driven. I want to divide it by miles per gallon, so the division symbol, and then I click on the miles per gallon cell, and then I want to multiply that, so I need the asterisk, and click onto today's gas price, and then hit return or enter, and I can see that it's going to cost $836 and about 84 cents for gasoline for 1 year. Okay, now once I have the information for the Accord Hybrid, I'm going to go ahead and find my next two vehicles. Again, students are allowed to pick whichever ones that they want to, but I've already chosen the Passat diesel, so I'm going to go back to Edmunds, and Passat is made by Volkswagen. And I would give students an opportunity to play around and choose the vehicles that they want, so they get motivated and excited about the problem. Okay, and here's the Passat diesel, and I'm going to choose the 2015 again, brand new. Okay, again I'm going to scroll down to get the MSRP. Here it is right here. Okay, we can see it's a little bit more expensive than the Accord was. And here's my fuel economy. It's 30 in the city and 42 in the highway. Okay, in this case I'm going to go ahead and average those together. And I can also see that the total seating does meet my criteria of 5. So the MSRP is $35,610. I can actually copy and paste that into my spreadsheet. And then I can go for to find the miles per gallon. I'm going to go ahead and get the average between 30 and 42. Again, I can do this paper and pencil, or I can use a calculator and simply add 30 plus 42, which is 72, and divide that by 2, and I have 36. So I'm going to go back on my spreadsheet and put 36, and Excel has a really nice feature. If I just go to the corner and pull down, it will actually do the same formula for these amounts that it did for these amounts. So I can now see that it's going to be $1,104 and about 17 cents for the price of gas for 1 year on the Passat diesel. Okay, now I'm ready for my next vehicle, which is the Accord gasoline. So I'm going to go back to Edmunds, Unfortunately, I went someplace else. Okay, here we go. Go back to Edmonds. Okay, I'm going to go to the make. And I'm going to go to the Accord. And one thing I want to explain to students when working on this site is if it doesn't say it's a diesel or if it doesn't say it's a hybrid, then it is going to be the gasoline version. So this is going to be the gasoline version. Okay, I'm going to go down and find that MSRP. Okay, and you really do have to show students where model and show students where things are on this site, but once they get used to it, it's very simple. So I can see the MSRP is $29,240. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, paste it back into my spreadsheet for the Accord gasoline version. Then I'm going to go back and go down. Okay, again, it's a 5-passenger vehicle. I'll check that. And here's my fuel economy. 27 miles per gallon in the city, 36 in the highway. So I'll do one more average, adding them together, and then dividing by the number that I added together. I added two figures together. So 31.5 is the average gasoline. So I'm going to put that right here. And then these numbers, students might get a little freaked out when they see that. That's going to go away as soon as I put that information in there. Okay, so now I can see the price for gasoline for 1 year is going to be the most expensive in the Accord Gas, but the price does start out to be the least expensive. So now over the course of many years, I can see which vehicle is going to make the most sense for me to own. If I own it for 1 year, for 3 years, and for 5 years. Okay, now the students are ready to graph their equations to get the information for the cost of ownership at 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. So in our groups, we've come up with the equation y equals price plus gas times x, the value of x, where the car price is going to be the price, the cost of gas for 1 year is going to be the gas, and the x is going to represent the amount of years. So I can write the first one for the Accord Hybrid at $32,875 plus $836.42 x, and then I would be able to put that into a graphing calculator. I'm going to go ahead and use an online graphing calculator, and I can put my y equals right here and go back to the spreadsheet and do the next vehicle, which is going to be the Passat diesel. So 35,610 plus $1,104.17 x, and go ahead and copy and paste that into my graphing calculator. And then I would go ahead and lastly do the Accord Gas, which was $29,240 plus cost of the gas $12.61.90 x, and go ahead and copy and paste that. Okay, now that I have all three expressions in the calculator, I can go ahead and tell it to graph. And one thing that you need to work with on your students is making sure that they go to the settings of their graphing calculator and change the minimums and maximums of their x, y, and their table settings. This is very important in a problem like this where you have very large numbers, otherwise they're not going to see their graph. So we've gone ahead and made it more reasonable minimum maximum since our prices were in the $30,000 range, and the years we're starting at 1 year is where we were concerned with. So now we can come over and we can look at our table, okay? And the way this graphing calculator works is if I click on the Y1, which was our first vehicle, the Honda Accord, its information comes up in the table. So I can see now the cost of ownership at 1 year is $33,711. I wanted you to look at 3 years and then also look at 5 years. Okay, we put these in a table and make a better comparison side by side. Okay, but if we look at the next value, the Passat diesel, we can see the cost of that ownership was more than the hybrid for the first year. Okay, and then we would compare that to the 3rd year, compare that to the 5th year to see which was a better value between. And then lastly, the gas vehicle, we can look at the 1st year, which is going to be the cheapest of all of them, and then at the 3rd year, but then at the 5th year we may see a difference that the cost of the hybrid or the diesel might have made more sense. So it's a great way to analyze that data and to see what the long-term costs of these vehicles are and decide whether or not you want to make the purchase long-term, short-term, which vehicle makes most sense for you.
The Common Core standards for the Zillow.com lesson are to solve real-world and mathematical problems by writing and solving equations of the form x plus p equals q or px equals q, for cases in which p, q, and x are all non-negative rational numbers. The second standard is to use variables to represent two quantities in a real-world problem that change in relationship to one another. Write an equation to express one quantity, thought of as the dependent variable, in terms of the other quantity, thought of as the independent variable. Analyze the relationship between the dependent and independent variables using graphs, tables, and ways to the equation. The standards for mathematical practice for the Zillow lesson are to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them, reason abstractly and quantitatively, use appropriate tools strategically, attend to precision, and look for and make use of structure. The problem. You've just been given the opportunity to buy your dream home. But first, you must figure out how much the price per square footage is for your home before purchasing to get the best deal. Using an address I have given you, find an equation for the price per square footage of the house. Finally, use the equation you have found to calculate how much you should pay for your dream home. The directions. Go on to Zillow.com and type in the address I have given you. Find the square footage of the house and come up with an equation to represent the price per square foot to the nearest hundredths place. Next, find your dream home on Zillow.com. Use an address, zip code, or city to get your dream home. Use the equation you have created and square footage of your dream home to find out how much this house will cost you. Finally, compare the price you have come up with to the listing price on Zillow. If the student's answer does not match the price listed on Zillow.com, it's okay. We can now discuss other factors that contribute to the pricing of homes: number of bedrooms, bathrooms, the location, acreage, etc. Next, the students will create a table and graph to show the relationship between square footage and cost of the home. Students should note that the square footage is our independent variable and the price of the house is our dependent variable. For the Zillow lesson, which is to prepare a comparative market analysis of homes, students are going to open a web browser and they're going to go on to Zillow.com. Once they're on this page, they're going to type in the address that I have previously found of a recently sold home and have given to them to use. So the address is 11910 Middlebury Drive here in Tampa. It's important to use a home in your surrounding community so that it's relevant to the students' lives and it sparks and keeps their interest in the lesson. So as we can see, this home did recently sell in September, and we're going to make a note of the square feet of the home and how much the home sold for. So the students are going to make a PX equals Q equation to represent the price per square foot to the nearest hundredths place. So for our equation, our P is $2,607 and our Q is $445,000. So our equation is 2,607x equals $445,000. Students can use a calculator to divide both sides by 2,607 because these are large numbers. So we divide, and we get a price per square foot of $170.69. Remember to round to the nearest hundredths. Next, the students are going to come back up to the search bar and they're going to type in their dream home address. It's important for the teacher to have a few addresses already found of homes for sale, just in case students are having trouble finding their dream home address or their dream home address isn't up for sale. It's important to find homes that are up for sale in Zillow. Prior to the lesson, the teacher can find these addresses by coming up here and changing between recently sold and for sale. So the for sale will come up in red dots as this home over here, and recently sold will come up in yellow dots, such as these homes. So the address that I have previously found is 1865 Tahoe Park Heights Drive in Tahoe City. This is located in California, so students can stay in Florida, they can go outside of Florida, they can even go to a different country. So as we can see, this house is for sale, and we're going to take note of the square footage of this house. So students are going to come up with a second PX equals Q equation using the X that they previously found and this new P. So students should realize that our equation is 3,549 times 170.69 equals Q. Again, they can use a calculator. So 3,549 times 170.69. And we figure our home, or our Q, should be priced at $605,779, round to the nearest ones place. Now, it is okay if the student's answer does not match the price listed on Zillow, because we can discuss the other factors that contribute to the pricing of homes, such as number of bedrooms, bathrooms, the location, the acreage, etc. So if a student comes to you concerned that their answer does not match the price listed on Zillow, just reassure them it's okay, check their math, and make sure that they're figuring everything out and they're on the right track. A couple of differentiation of the lesson that we can do for the students is one, to use calculators. Again, these are large numbers that the students are dealing with, so allowing them to use a calculator will help them become less frustrated with the large numbers. A second differentiation we can do is allowing students to work with a partner, especially students with learning disabilities that have trouble navigating the website or have trouble with the instructions. Having a partner can be an emotional and helpful support system to them. And a third thing we can do is, once we've figured out the price per square feet, We can then continue the lesson into finding the price per bedroom, the price per bathroom, the price for the acreage, etc., so students can get closer to this listing price on Zillow. Because obviously the bedrooms and the bathrooms are going to play a role in this listing price. So the next thing the students are going to do is they're going to create a table and a graph to show the relationship between square footage and cost of the house. The students should note that the square footage is our independent variable and the price of the house is our dependent variable. So students will need prior knowledge of graphing independent and dependent variables in order to do this part of the lesson. So before you even start the Zillow lesson, you can do a quick review of how to graph independent and dependent variables. So we can come up here and make our equation be y1 equals 170.69 x, because we're just multiplying by x, so we can just write an x here. And you need to make sure the settings on the student's graphing calculator are changed to the correct minimum and maximum. So our x minimum is going to be 0, and our x maximum we're going to set at 5,000 square feet. This makes our y minimum 0, and our y maximum is 5,000 square feet times 170.69. So this ends up being 853,450. Our table setting is going to start at 1,000 square feet, and we're going to step up every 1,000. Once we click graph, our table will be formed over here, and our graph will be formed in this screen. We can zoom out a little to see the numbers a little bit better. Allowing students to use a graphing calculator to do this can be very helpful because these numbers are large, and allowing them to work with a partner can also be helpful in case they get stuck or frustrated. Students should realize that this is a positive slope of the graph, and it should make sense because as you increase the square footage, the price of the home is going to increase as well.
Common Core standards for this lesson are find probabilities of compound events using organized lists, tables, tree diagrams, and simulation, and use permutations and combinations to compute probabilities of compound events and solve problems. The standards for mathematical practice for this lesson are make sense of problems and persevere in solving them, reason abstractly and quantitatively, model with mathematics, use appropriate tools strategically, attend to precision, and look for and express regularity in repeated reasoning. The directions for this lesson are to first go onto order.papajohns.com and select Create Your Own Pizza. Find the number of options for the size, crust, vegetable, meat, and cheese. Use this information to construct a tree diagram and determine the number of different pizzas you could order for the given scenarios. Using the online ordering option on Papa John's Pizza website, students will determine the number of outcomes for a given event. First, they will need to go to order.papajohns.com and select Create Your Own. First, they need to find the number of options in each category. Students will realize that there are 4 size options, 2 crust options, 8 vegetable options, and 8 meat options, and 4 cheese options. Using this information, they will construct a tree diagram to help them determine the number of different pizzas you could order for the given scenarios. The first problem asks, if you selected only one option from each of the different categories, how many different pizzas could you order? Students will use their knowledge of the basic counting principle to solve this problem. Part 2 asks them to, if you wanted to order a large original crust pizza with cheddar cheese, how many different pizzas could you make with no toppings, with only one topping, with 2 toppings, with 3 toppings, or how many different pizzas could you make with all 20 toppings? They will need to use the formula for combinations, and through this series of problems, they should see a pattern which will assist them in the understanding of future combination problems. This could lead into further discussion of combinations and permutations. You could discuss how the problem would change if the order in which the toppings were put on mattered. This would show the difference in combinations and permutations. Some students may need assistance in navigating the site, so it would be beneficial to allow them to work in groups.